All right, guys, let's go ahead and start by creating a new circuit. And the objective today is twofold, right? I will be showing you how to use a new electronics component. We will be talking about a slide switch today. And I also want you to get used to drawing circuit diagram based on what it is you build. So the official name of this simulation is going to be Slideswich simulation. And it is exactly what it sounds like. We will be using a slide switch. So I'm going to start with breadboard small. I'm going to grab my breadboard and put it on my screen. And yes, it's this one with bus rails on the top and on the bottom. And I will start by building something that looks very much like our circuit from Simulation Parade. Right? I'm going to have a battery, which I'm going to put 4 or 3 battery pack, doesn't matter, right? So a 3 battery pack is just fine. This is 4.5 volts. Have positive and negative. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. And this is my negative, this is my positive. I'll just plug it in over here. So now I have my negative going into the top rail, my positive going into the bottom rail. I will route it down as well, so I have both plus and a minus on the bottom. So now I have positive and negative running both through the top and through the bottom. All right, so what am I trying to do today? I am going to be drawing a circuit diagram that looks something like this, right? I've got a battery. This is my 4.5 volts. And then I'm going to make a choice. I can go into branch number 1. This is my resistor where I will have a resistor and an LED. Or I could go into branch number 2 where I will have a different resistor and a different LED. Why would I want to do this? Well, let's say this one is green and this one is red. This is basically your rudimentary traffic light. So you're switching between red and green, but never at any point do you have both of them on together. This is not a parallel circuit. When you think about this circuit, you can split this circuit up into 2. If your switch is selected in the position that the green LED is lit, then the circuit that you have looks like this. And this is just your regular series circuit with a green LED, nothing fancy. If you are in a situation where it's the red that's selected, your circuit is going to look like this. And this is going to be your red. So you're literally selecting between 2 circuits over here. Is this going through the green path? Is this going through the black path? So before we can do this selection, we need to set up our slide switch. Because if you look at my circuit diagram, the slide switch is the first thing that you have over here. And this slide switch, it actually has a name. Properly, it is called an SPDT switch. And SPDT stands for single pole double throw. What does that mean? That means it has one pole, it's right here, the switch, and you can throw it into 2 places. So single pole double throw. So you will notice that my switch has 3 ends, right? One end of the pole and then 2 places where it can be connected. So let's look at my actual switch and take a look at it. So I've got my switch. It has 3 legs, a common leg, terminal 1, and terminal 2. When you look at my circuit diagram, right, this is exactly what we're going to have, right? This is going to be the common leg, which we're going to connect to power. And these 2 terminals on the sides are going to be the sides that will be connected to my green side and to my red side. So let's connect this. So this one is called common. We're just going to run it straight up into the power. And then the terminal 1 is going to be one setup. The terminal 2 is going to be the other setup. Okay, let's look at my circuit diagram. So now that I have this, let me set up my terminals, right? So first I'm going to go ahead and set up my terminal 1 over here. And on my diagram, this is my red LED. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up that. So I'm going to have a resistor and an LED. So I'm going to grab a resistor. It's connected to my terminal 1, so it has to be in the same column as my terminal 1. And then I have a red LED going on over here, which is connected directly to my resistor, right? This is a series circuit. And then I'm going to connect this back into the negative end of my terminal. So far, it looks like I have set up my red end of my terminal. So what I want to do is I want to see if this works. And it is true that my green terminal is not set up. So if my switch is turned on into this position, nothing's going to light up because I don't have anything in terminal 2. But if it's on terminal 1, I should be able to see my LED light up. So let's take a look. And it does light up. So it looks like all of my connections are. Now the resistor, the value of the resistor, I have not changed in this case. The value is 1K. The value of the resistor doesn't really matter for the simulation, so we're just going to leave it as is. So let's take a look. My second terminal, right? It's exactly the same except the LED is green. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my second terminal now. So I'm going to grab my resistor. And I'm going to grab my LED. Now, here's the deal, right? Notice that I don't have a lot of space to put my LED. So I have several options that I can do. My favorite one is I'm just going to move my resistor out a little bit, raise my slide switch, and connect my terminal to my resistor like this. And I keep the wire green because this is my green side, right? So this is going to be green. Going to connect it up like this, and then I'm going to connect it straight into the negative end of the battery. And now when I start my simulation, I should be able to switch between red and green very easily. So this is very, very, very straightforward. But what if I want a little more? You know, this is not a real traffic light. The real traffic light, I mean, this is like a pedestrian light. Right, red and green, but the real traffic light has yellow. And I have only 2 terminals over here. So I only have 2 options for my red and green. I don't have the third option, but I can get a third option by using another slide switch. So this is what I am going to do. I'm going to grab another slide switch, and I'm going to connect it in such a way that I have 3 options. Now, before I do this, I'm going to draw a circuit diagram. So let's take a look what it is I'm after. So once again, I'm going to have a battery. This is 4.5 volts. But this time, I want to have 3 options. So my resistor and my red LED, my resistor and my yellow LED, my resistor and my green LED. And what I really want, I want to choose between those 3 branches. The symbol for the slide switch or SPDT switch looks like this, right? A pole and double throw. And I'm saying that if I have 2 of those, I can absolutely set it up in such a way that they choose between 3 options. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect my first slide switch to my first, one of the throw of my first slide switch to the first throw. But the second one, I'm just going to add another slide switch. Like this. So now I have 1 slide switch that is choosing between the red and the second slide switch. And my second slide switch is going to choose between yellow and blue. So this is my first slide switch, right? And this is my second slide switch right here. So this is switch 1. And this is switch 2. So I'm literally toggling between a switch and a path. and the second switch toggles between two paths. So let's go ahead and set this up and see how that will work. And of course, guys, when you're looking at this, at the very end, this is literally splits up into 3 different diagrams. So if you choose red, this is the only pathway that your current ever goes into. If you chose yellow, once again, this is the only pathway. It looks parallel, but it isn't. The end result is actually very much a series circuit. And the last one is going to be green. So in the end, it kind of comes out to being a choice between 3 different circuits. Okay, so let's set this up. Right? So my first one is red, but then over here, I'm choosing between the red and the slide switch. So instead of this whole green stuff, right, instead of this green branch, I actually need to set up my second slide switch. I don't really need to delete all of this because I'm going to reuse this later, but I will move it. So I'm setting up the second slide switch. So the first terminal was connected to my red, and the second terminal, if you look at it, was connected to the common of the next switch. Let's look at this switch. This is my common, and I'm going to go ahead and run a little wire from the second terminal to my common. So right now I have power running into the common, into terminal 1 when it's selected. When the terminal 2 is selected, it's going to run into the common, into the terminal 2, and then we have another choice between terminal 1 and terminal 2 on the second switch. And this is, of course, where we can add our yellow. So once again, I'm going to add a resistor. I'm going to add an LED. This LED is going to be yellow. I'm going to run this into the ground, into my negative end. And I'm going to connect terminal 1 of the slide switch, of the second slide switch, to yellow, and terminal 2 of the slide switch to green. Just use a wire so I don't have to move anything, and connect this into the ground. So if I did everything correctly, I should have a choice between a red, a yellow, and a green. So let's take a look. So right now, this is what's happening. My switch over here is connected to terminal 1 on my switch 1. That means my red is selected. So what's next? Well, let's switch the switch to the other side. So now what is happening is my switch over here is selected to terminal 2 on switch 1. That turns on the second switch. And on that switch, it's the yellow that is currently selected. And then, of course, when I toggle the switch one more time, it's the green that is selected. So you can see that I can toggle between red, yellow, and green. Right? So I have your regular traffic light. So this is what I wanted to show you today. So now listen carefully, because your task is going to be a little different than. I want you to do 2 things. I obviously want you to build the simulation, but that's not all. I don't want you to have 3 LEDs. I want you to have 4 LEDs. So you must have 4 LEDs and 3 switches. Yes, you're going to have to add an extra switch. And there are different ways of doing this. You can actually stagger your switches like I'm doing over here. You can have 1 switch controlling the other 2. It is really up to you how you do it. There is more than one way of doing this. I will leave it to your imagination what is going to be your last color on your circuit. It can be blue, it can be white, whatever you want, as long as you don't repeat the color. So this is your task. I'm going to go ahead and write it out. 4 LEDs, 3 switches. And I also want you to write out your circuit diagrams the way I did it. So you have to write down the circuit diagram for what you do. So my circuit diagram over here includes 2 switches. Your circuit diagram will include, 3 switches. You can do it exactly the same way I did, only an extra switch. And yes, I want you to do this. I want you to show me which circuits it selects when you switch to a certain position. So it's going to be very simple. It's just going to be your series circuit with an LED of different color. So all of this you have to draw. So you have to build and then you have to draw your circuit diagram. Now, how you are going to draw that circuit diagram, I don't really care. I think probably one of the easiest ways is to do this using a snipping tool. Because all you have to do is take a screenshot, and then in your screenshot space, you can just grab the pen and you can start drawing your circuit diagram, just like this. But if you don't want to use the snipping tool, the other option you can have, you can take a screenshot of your simulation, you can draw your circuit diagram in Microsoft Word. You can even draw it on paper and just insert the picture of the simulation and of your drawing into the Word. That works too. And you know, you're not actually limited with colors over here because you have red pen and you have custom pen. So you can choose custom colors. So for example, I want to choose yellow. So you can absolutely choose whichever color you need. And color it any way you like. And yes, guys, I do want you to show me the circuits that it breaks down to, the circuits that are actually selected. Because this is really 3 circuits rolled into one, and your switches help you choose between those 3 circuits. So if you submit something like this, but you have, once again, 4 LEDs and 3 switches, then you're gonna get 100. So this is what I'm looking for. This type of circuit, except you're gonna have 3 switches instead of 2. And yes, that does mean that it's gonna break into 4 circuits instead of 3. That is perfectly fine. So once you have done this, you're gonna submit your screenshot or your Word file, or however you're gonna do it, in here. Work for March 10th simulation for Slideswich. So just turn in your simulation with your circuit diagram. And guys, you all know I look at them. I look at every single simulation. So don't even think of like submitting wherever. I will look at them.